All right, I lost count of the For the Boys episode numbers. I cannot tell you what episode number this is, but this is For the Boys. This is for the boys who started dating again, and they are exploring dating. Maybe they were already dating, in a relationship with someone. And we're going to talk about something kind of difficult, like the difference between showing up as a boyfriend and a husband, how that feels different, how it looks different, the pros and cons of each. And then we're also going to dive into not only how boyfriends can and do show up differently, but also we're going to talk about whether or not you want to be a stepdad, if that's a fear you have, and a reason why you avoid dating women with children, even though you might have your own children. And I may have a very different perspective on this than a lot of women and even a lot of therapists. So we'll see what your thoughts are. Hopefully, I'll get some comments and feedback. But somewhere around a third or fourth date, a lot of times women look across the table at you and say something like, wow, like you're so steady, you're so easy to be with. And that might land strange for some of you because for a lot of years, the person who you knew best was using very different words. So if you've done some healing work, or you just feel like a whole new person on the other side of your divorce, or maybe you're going through the divorce right now, you might not be getting the same type of reaction from women than what you're used to because of all those years in marriage if it wasn't working. So, the question underneath this whole episode is how can the same man be the disappointment in one person's story and then a safe harbor in another? And today we're going to answer that honestly. And we're getting into stuff I feel like nobody wants to say out loud. The real difference between being a boyfriend, being a husband, and being a husband with someone and having children with them. It's very different. And it's actually different. And it doesn't just feel that way. So, what it means to date a woman with children versus a woman without children, or even a woman with adult children versus a woman with younger children, school age. And then again, like I said, that question that a lot of men want to avoid because they don't want to think about it. Like, do you want to be a stepfather? So let's get into it. Welcome back to For the Boys. This is a series for men who are in the middle of it, divorce, dating again, and the strange work of figuring out who you are on the other side of your marriage when it ends. So there's no performance here, no posturing, just the truth and some research to back it up because I feel like that helps with men. And I want to say a little bit about, but not too much about, what inspired me to make this episode. A big transitional period in my family's life has just happened. My ex-husband has remarried, and I found myself asking a lot of these questions as I looked and saw photos and heard the stories of their wedding and even saw my husband's social media during their honeymoon. And I thought, wow, like we're in such a different place with our partners now than we were with one another. And I'll be honest, I think that a lot of what I was afraid of when I was in the process of leaving and considering leaving was that he would be a better partner to someone else and that I would have to witness that and I would have regret. But the truth was, and it still is, that because we had children together and because we were married, not boyfriend and girlfriend, there were responsibilities that each of us thought the other person signed up for. that the other person didn't want to do. And so there was just an impossible situation where we couldn't have lacked resentment for one another because there was an expectation on both sides and expectations that weren't being met. That now, for me, I'm in a relationship with someone who is my boyfriend, but we don't share finances. We don't share a home. We don't share home duties. He does not step in like a stepdad at all and engages very little with my kids who are much older. Therefore, some of the things that created conflict in my marriage just don't exist at all in my relationship. And that's by choice. And then I don't want to speak for him, but he's in a relationship with someone with adult kids. So that's also very different. And he doesn't have a lot of the responsibilities that some dads have with his own kids, and they're older. So let's start with the paradox here, okay? Your ex thinks you're the worst. Your new partner thinks that you hung the moon, right? Talking to the men. The easy move is to decide one of them is wrong, right? I could do the same because I definitely know that my boyfriend thinks that there is no better woman on earth and he can't believe that I'm real. And I'm just telling you what he says because I don't nag, I don't complain, I don't nag him or tease him in a mean way. I'm always super enthusiastic to be with him and be doing whatever it is we are doing together. My level of enthusiasm is probably over the top, and that's never changed. And yet, that is none of those things would be the realities of how I was in my marriage. Let's try to resist the need to say our ex is wrong and our new partner is right. All right. Like we're not showing up the same way. Most of the time, both of them are describing something real. So here's what's actually changed. It wasn't your character. It was the container that you were in. Okay. The container I'm in right now is really fun, full of desire and passion. And even after 3 years, it's still so fun. It's a fun container. There's no real world, like hard problems. We're not in a business relationship, which is kind of what the marriage container ended up being. So in a marriage, raising children, it's a specific kind of pressure system, right? The container is full of pressure. Then there are years of logistics and unequal exhaustion and roles that get harder with time and one person pursuing, the other person pulling away, both people waiting for the other to move first. So researchers at the Gottman Institute have a name for this. They call it the pursue-withdraw pattern, and it's one of the most reliable predictors of disconnection in long-term couples. The key word is pattern. It's a system. Two people get caught inside. It's not a verdict on who you are. It's a pattern that you have both fallen into. Take away the shared project of raising small kids, and the same man can show up present in a way he genuinely could not show up before. And something I think that nobody talks about, but is so important, is that some men don't want to be part of the child rearing at all. And so they hide from it in being a workaholic. I'm not saying that's why everyone is a workaholic, but some people do that. They don't want to come home. They don't know what to do with the kids. It's not enjoyable for them. They love their children, but they don't enjoy being there and helping in that process. So they stay at work. And that is a very different kind of container in and of itself, because the pressure that is organizing in that system is immense. And the pressure that's organizing around raising children in general is pretty intense. So when you feel like a different man in this new relationship, or you feel like a different man in the dating world, if that's where you're at, you definitely might be and probably are. But let's stay honest about why. Because I think it can be really hurtful and harmful for someone to say, well, I'm a better man with this woman because she's better to me, without taking into consideration the circumstances that other person was in the relationship with you in. Okay. So that's all I'm gonna leave it there, but I think you know what I'm saying. So let's talk about the words themselves. Boyfriend, husband. We use them casually, but they carry completely different weight. Husband is a thick word. It comes loaded with provision and permanence and accumulated ledger of a shared life. Every promise you did keep or you didn't keep, it's all there. Boyfriend is lighter. It gets chosen again and again every morning. So part of what men feel as relief in a new relationship is exactly that. The relief of being elective again. You're a choice. And you're being chosen. And you're feeling wanted rather than owed, right? So different. The therapist Esther Perel talks about how desire needs a certain amount of space and freedom to survive. That we're drawn to a partner most when there's still something chosen, something not fully guaranteed in it. So a new relationship has that already built in. It's part of the new relationship. A long marriage by design trades some of that space for security. Neither is better, but they are different. And the difference is real and it's really important, especially in this conversation. There's a deeper reason the husband role feels so heavy and the new role after divorce feels so light. And it's not just personal. Back in 1978, there was a sociologist named Andrew Cherlin, and he wrote a landmark paper describing remarriage as what he called an incomplete institution. His point was this: first marriage comes with a full set of social scripts. Everyone roughly knows what a husband is, what a wife is, how in-laws work, who does what. Remarriage, and especially stepfamily life, comes with almost none of that. There's no agreed upon script, no clear rules. And as we'll see, that missing script explains a lot of what makes the second time around so much harder to navigate than anyone expects. Now we're not talking about a boyfriend anymore. We're talking about a remarriage. Totally different scenario, because now you've got husband and husband. But this husband's role can be very different. So I think you have to ask directly, like, when a second relationship has no shared kids in it, it's going to feel lighter and freer and easier. But is that real? Or are you just in the honeymoon phase fooling yourself? The honest answer is some of both. And the research actually helps us separate the two. Here's the part that's real. Sociologists have found for decades that higher instability of remarriages isn't really about remarriage itself. There were two researchers, White and Booth, that showed back in the 80s that elevated divorce risk is concentrated in families with stepchildren, not in remarried couples generally. The second marriage between two people with no kids in the mix tends to look statistically a lot like a first marriage. But it's the presence of children from the prior relationship that introduces the real structural strain and the blended family problems. And the numbers on that strain is really sobering. One really large analysis that I found by Wendy Manning found that among women under 45, roughly 1 in 5 first marriages end in divorce within 5 years, but closer to 1 in 3 remarriages does. But let me be careful with that figure or those figures because they're very broad, like national averages, and your life is not an average. So I always want to be careful to be clear, but the direction is clear and it's worth respecting. So when your kid-free relationship feels different, it's not entirely an illusion. Structurally, it is different. You've removed the single biggest source of second marriage strain before it ever entered the room, which is going to just feel better. But here's the other half of the truth, the part you have to be honest about. Some of that lightness is just the absence of history, too. Your ex-wife didn't start as the person who you thought you were, who thought you were the worst. That accumulated over time. A new partner hasn't had time to build up a single grievance yet. There's no mortgage of small resentments, no 15 years of unmet expectations. That's not because she's a better match. It's because the meter hasn't started running yet. Both things are true at once. So hold them both and be realistic and face reality of this. And hopefully between these two relationships or marriages, you've done the work on yourself to improve the parts of you that made it hard to meet their expectations or set boundaries or whatever issues that you had in the marriage. So let's be practical now because a lot of you are dating women who have children. And I want to say this clearly, dating a woman with kids is not one experience. It changes shape completely depending on how old the kids are, how many kids there are, and each individual family dynamic. So let's break it down a little bit. Like if she has very young kids, say under 8, a couple of things could be true. The daily texture pulls you in the direction of a caretaking role fast, right? Whether either of you planned it or not, pickups, bedtime, sick days, somebody else's tantrum, you may have to play a role in. But here's the piece of the research that surprises people. Younger kids, and boys in particular, tend to accept a stepfather more easily. Dr. Papernow, one of the world's leading stepfamily researchers, has found that stepfamily life is generally easier for children 8 and under and easier for boys than girls. So young kids pull you in faster, but they often let you in faster too, which makes a lot of sense. If the woman has teenagers, the equation flips. You get more day-to-day autonomy. A 15-year-old doesn't need you at bedtime, but adolescence does hold fierce loyalties, especially to the parent they may feel got hurt in the divorce. So the research is specific here. Step families are hardest for girls, especially hard for young teenage girls. That is not a knock on you. You could be the kindest man alive and still get held at an arm's length for a really long time. If that's the situation you're walking into, you need to know that it's normal and you need to not take it personally or as a personal failure. And your partner, their mother, needs to realize that as well. And if her kids are grown and they're out of the house, you get the most freedom of all. This is the best case scenario. But don't mistake grown kids for absent kids. The children are never going to leave her frame. There are holidays and weddings and grandchildren and a mother's attention that will always route back toward their kids. Papernow even notes that the adult daughters of repartnering fathers can struggle with it as much as young kids do. So her kids being adults doesn't mean that her kids won't matter or have opinions or needs. It just means that the challenges move to a different terrain and the day-to-day interaction is very different. I know that probably seems obvious, but I do want to talk about the fantasy of the blended family because almost everyone walks into this carrying like this picture of the Brady Bunch. Everybody gathered warmly around one big table, the kids adoring you, all the awkwardness is dissolved by good intentions and love. The Brady Bunch. The research here is genuinely humbling. So let me give it to you really straight. Step families take years to actually come together, not months, years. Papernow's work, along with other major researcher named James Bray, found the average step family takes somewhere between 4 and 7 years to genuinely cohere into a functioning unit. The faster ones, usually with young kids and very intentional adults, they can do it in about 4. The slower ones can take 9, 10, or even 12 years. Bray found that most step families don't even start to think or feel like a family until the end of the 2nd or 3rd year. So let that be a reset button for your expectations, not to put too much on yourself. If you're 2 years in and it still feels really effortful and awkward, you're not failing. You're exactly, precisely on schedule. And Papernow puts it in a way that I love. She says, trying to run a step family using the instincts of a first family is like trying to navigate the streets of New York City using a map of Boston. The map isn't bad. It's just the wrong city. Most of the pain in blended families happens because people are using the wrong map and then blaming themselves when they get lost. So here's the thing. Here's the thing that's worth sitting with. For a lot of children, becoming a step family is a lot harder than the divorce was. That's not a reason to avoid it or to avoid women who have kids. It's a reason to walk in with your eyes open and to stop expecting a feeling of an instant family. And this goes for men and women. The research doesn't support that's what really happens. And 9 years is a long time. It's another real question. The one I think most men are going to skip right past. Do you want to be a stepfather? Do you want to play a role in the life of the woman you are with? Kids. And I'm not asking, can you? I'm not asking, can you tolerate it? I'm not asking, will she leave if you don't? Right? I'm not asking, is it the price of admission? I'm asking, do you want that role? A lot of men never ask themselves this cleanly because there's a loud cultural script that makes the question feel really shameful. And I want to remove the shame. I know you hear it everywhere, even in the manosphere. But even in the dating apps, I would see and hear people talking about and complaining about men who didn't want to date women with kids. Because the script says a man who doesn't want to raise another man's kids is selfish or immature or not a real man or afraid of commitment. I want to challenge that directly. That script is not the truth. Just like women who don't want to have children, there's nothing wrong with them. Here's what's actually true. A fulfilling, committed, loving partnership does not require you to become a third parent. Remember Cherlin I talked about earlier. The step parent role is an incomplete institution. There's no law, no script, no rule that says loving a woman means signing up to co-parent her children. And I believe that firmly. Those are 2 different commitments. You can be steady and warm and consistent, and you can be present in a child's life, someone who's reliable and safe, without being a disciplinarian, without carrying the title of dad or stepdad, without making someone else's parenting your whole identity and taking over their responsibilities. And the research agrees with this. One of the most consistent findings in the field is that stepfathers who charge in early trying to be an authority figure, laying down the rules, handing out discipline, tend to make things worse, not better. The ones who do best start as something closer to a warm, friendly, trusted adult and let any deeper roles just build slowly over years, if it builds at all. So the pressure to instantly become dad isn't just heavy, it's actually totally counterproductive. Loving a woman and supporting how she mothers is not the same thing as co-parenting. And pretending those are identical serves no one, least of all the kid. Those kids can feel the difference between a man who genuinely chose the role and a man who's performing it out of obligation. Children read that. They see it in your energy, and they always pick up on it. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't step in as a stepdad if that's something you really want. And I know people who have incredible stepfathers and they said they love me like I was their own, and they came in when I didn't have a dad present, or I have my dad and my stepdad and it worked out great. Those things all happen too. All I'm saying is ask yourself the question and don't buy in to the program that says that if you are with a woman who has children, that you have to fall into this stepdad or dad obligations. There are women like myself who will happily be with you and let you kind of stay out of their kids' lives. That is possible. Obviously, if you're getting married and everyone's living in the same place, you're going to become a stepdad. But if you're just staying a boyfriend, you do not have to do that. And I think that a lot more women feel more comfortable not mixing, not blending the two. And me personally, like this has been a choice that we've made, that until my kids are completely adults, my boyfriend is playing like a minimal role in their life, cordial, but he was very strong in saying that that's what he wanted very early on. And so I had a choice to continue to be with him, knowing this and knowing that he had been honest with me. It's not about my kids, it's about him and his desire to have not had kids and other things. But I had a choice and I chose to be with him and raise my kids on my own. And that's working really beautifully for us. And it's part of the reason I think just released another episode about like continuing on a lot of those feelings from the honeymoon phase. And I think a lot of it, the reason why we are in such a great place, despite being together so long, is that we don't blend a lot of our responsibilities, especially the kid responsibilities. If the all-in stepfather role isn't the only option, what are other options? Let me give you a few honest ones. You could be the consistent, kind adult who has his own relationship with her kids, not as a parent, but as himself. You can support her parenting without overriding it. You can build a life that's deeply connected without necessarily living under one roof or merging every part of your two worlds. There's more than one shape a committed relationship can take. The Brady Bunch is one shape, but it's not the only one. And it's not the best one for everyone. And I think that we definitely live in a society that judges us for not doing that blending, but that is not necessary. That blending can cause more harm than good. I live right next door to my partner rather than sharing one home, and the autonomy within the dynamic that we have. We can be very close and live very separate lives. our relationship is fully secure and deeply committed without following a standard blueprint that says he has to step into a role that he didn't want and didn't feel comfortable in. And I think that for us, it has preserved parts of our relationship that we really, really value. And the biggest part is that desire. We've left enough space open between our two lives that we can still maintain a very high level of desire because we haven't merged our lives so much that there's no room for desire or mystery or longing. The point of that story and my story and sharing it is simple. There's so much peace in the second half of life. And I think it's available to all of us, but it really comes from assembling this picture that everyone expects us to have and everyone expects us to create. It comes from being really honest enough to build the life with another person that you can live inside. And that can look whatever way the two of you want it to. So here's where I'm going to leave you. The man your ex saw and the man your new partner sees were both shaped by the rooms that they were standing in. Neither one is the final word on who you are. So the work now is not to prove the good version and bury the bad one. The work is to choose your next container with your eyes wide open and honestly know which role you can keep, know which roles you want to be in, and then say it out loud early to her and to yourself before the kids are attached, before the resentment has anywhere to grow. And we're talking a lot about kids here, but we could also be talking about finances. Like, be honest about where you stand on big things like finances, where you're going to live, children. That one honest conversation had early prevents more heartbreak than almost anything else that you can do. Not every good man is meant to be a stepfather, and that doesn't make you less of a man. It makes you an honest one. Some men are never meant to be monogamous. Okay, that's fine. Have that conversation very early. It could change over time in this new relationship, but give the woman the option to opt out before she's head over heels with you and be upfront early. I know lots of my friends who are in the dating world and myself, like early on in the relationship, a lot of men are coming forward and saying, I have no interest in monogamy. And then that gives the woman the option to say, okay, I'm okay to an open situation. It doesn't mean it won't evolve from non-monogamy to monogamy, but it is a big trend right now. Is definitely for men to be upfront and saying that they don't want that. So the honesty, it turns out, is the whole foundation of the kind of relationship that you're actually looking for, the one that you want when you find the right person. So say it like it is and be honest. And if you meet a woman who needs you to be a stepdad, then you have decisions to make and she has decisions to make, but be honest. It's a big, huge responsibility. So if you're in this place, you're dating again, you're on the other side of the divorce, or you're going through it, you're trying to figure out what's going to work for you. This is the kind of work I do with people. So I share a lot of it here so people have access to this information. And I love providing this kind of different lens for men to think through. But if you need a little bit more support, all my contact information will be in the show notes. And we can very quietly, privately, without judgment, have a conversation about what it is that you're looking for, what you need. Maybe you just need help kind of like processing through what it is you're willing to live with, what it is you aren't willing to live with. So for now, take care of yourself. Do me a big favor if you got to the end of the show today and put in the comments something that you would like to hear me share and talk about. If there's an issue or something that you're working through right now while you're going through your divorce and you want me to put it through a therapist lens for men, then I would love to do that for you. So put it in the comments. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time.